So CT has stepped out. He's gone into a meeting. CT now with these things. Ameenda kukutana na raia. Hapa nje. The world is talking about climate change. CT is talking about change.
Change generally.
Change generally, in total. But we are joined by Collins Oyuu, who is the Secretary General of the Kenya National Union of Teachers. He's back. This time, we want to talk about the education. Is it a crisis? Is it not? We in the Situation Room have been saying we have a crisis in the education sector. How come nobody else is talking about it? Let's see if the Secretary General of the National Union of Teachers will agree with us. Good morning, Collins.
Good morning.
Welcome again to Kenya's Biggest Conversation.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Again, you missed CT. When you were here last week, he wasn't here. Now again, he's just stepped out.
He's not here.
Most unfortunate. In fact, he greeted me as he was leaving. So when you say he's out for another duty altogether, I'm very much aware.
Yes.
It's good we met and said hi.
Did he give you the proverb?
Well, he
While you were there.
He didn't.
He should have. Because do you remember the proverb? So the proverb is from which country?
It is from Gabon, the Federal Republic of Gabon, otherwise known as La République Fédérale du Gabonais.
Okay.
Now, many spiders make a web stronger. No, many spider webs together,
Can eat a lion.
can wrap up a lion.
Basically, the thrust of the proverb, we don't remember the exact wording that CT was using, is many spiders' webs, when they join together, they can ensnare and trap a lion.
Right.
They can catch a lion.
I think that is the power of working together.
Union.
Our clarion call as a union is solidarity. You cannot go it alone. You must work with others, and as you do so, you are stronger than ever.
For the union makes us strong.
Solidarity forever.
There's a
Yes.
song.
Yeah.
Forever, solidarity forever. So
I don't think you're musicians, because you ought to have started another
On
tone
a higher
to
pitch. This guy
to allow
is
me
like
to allow me also
You started
join
it
in.
at the 79 octaves low. I go with it.
Yes.
Okay,
Thank
but we
you.
get it. Karibu sana.
Asante sana.
Last week we were talking about the deal that the union had
The
struck
CBA,
with the Teachers Service Commission, the employer. But we also touched on what else is happening in the education sector.
Right.
We looked at the role of the CBC and the challenges that has faced.
Yeah.
And even the government the president establishing the Working Party on Education Reforms.
Right.
And looking at reforming our entire sector. How we're financing our education sector, how we are promoting and even promoting the education itself, how we are managing the education sector itself,
Right.
quality control, now moving from the Teacher Service Commission back to the
Ministry
Ministry
of
of Education,
Yeah.
the benefits of that. But then we still have an issue. As we talk about financing, a lot of this financing, it's meant to be free basic education
Right.
to a greater extent. It means that the government is actually the one that is funding this.
Education.
But we hear complaints from head teachers every time schools are opening that they have not received the capitation that they ought to be receiving. That there's an instruction and an order from the Cabinet Secretary for Education. You should not increase school fees. You should not charge school fees. So they are caught between a rock and a hard place.
Right.
Money hasn't come, and parents are being told, please, don't give these people money.
And they're expected to deliver.
Yes. Why is it so?
Well, I think this is, first, thank you very much for the invite. And I think it's a very good forum for me to express exactly what is happening in the education sector, and more so in the perspective of the Kenya National Union of Teachers as a teacher's representative. Now, when you say Kenya's education is in crisis, I don't agree 100%. And reason why I don't agree is that we've had so many reforms in the education sector to fight the perception of the crisis. the latest, if you leave alone commissions, you can remember too well.
Yep.
We've had so many commissions in education, the Gashadi, the Ominde, and the rest of it. These commissions are always set to improve the sector, to allay fears of crisis that is in the lips of everybody every other time and again. And finally, we had the Presidential Working Party. In fact, the president came in handy to save the sector. If we went by what was there before the Presidential Working Party, the task force, you can remember too well, I think we would have actually talked about total crisis in education in this country. And I think what came up strongly was about the new system now, the CBC. There was to be changes which did not actually take effect based on the fact that there was no proper public participation. The Presidential Working Party opened doors for proper public participation. Last time I was there, I told you, Kenya National Union of Teachers contributed a lot, more so in giving way forward proposals that ended up in the final report, which of course, the greatest participant, the biggest, driver, matters education, is a teacher. So the teacher becomes the engine. So listen to the teacher. You not get it wrong, because we have practical experience as we deliver. When you talk about parents still complaining, the government also giving ultimatums and directives, and this is where we miss it. The government should be very, very realistic in what they want to push as a directive. For example, you tell parents to take their children to school. Well, I know we should have 100%, enrollment, and every other child in this country has a right to be in school. But the other side of the coin should also be looked into. Well, you are pushing that every child should be in school, and most are boarding schools, where we have principals feeding these children, and there's no money, capitation has not come. What essentially are you trying to drive at? Because look at strikes in schools. Day schools don't go on strike, rarely. But boarding schools will, more often than not, get into strikes. What borders that away from any other thing that could be there, which can be considered as, to be on the periphery? It is basically how the school is being managed in terms of even feeding of these children. The congestion in these schools also is a factor. If the principal has nothing to feed these children on, do you think the hungry child will sit put and say, let us remain hungry?
It's interesting as you say these things, Collins, because everything you've said then contributes to the fact that there is a crisis in the education.
Points to a crisis.
All of this points to a crisis. I mean, we could just list it. You talked about the teachers. They should be satisfied when it comes, but we have a plethora of exampmes of how dissatisfaction is rife amongst teachers in this country. Teachers have been transferred to schools whereby there is a math teacher who says, all right, well, we've gotten an extra teacher, you may go and teach SST. We have teachers who, according to them, have not been trained with the new curriculum and are being made to teach the new curriculum. They don't even know what to do. We have teachers who are high school teachers, but then they've been domiciled in primary schools where we have been told that lower secondary will be domiciled. Crisis amongst teachers. What you've just talked about now. Capitation does not come from central government on time. Teachers or school heads then cannot provide. They have to then ask parents to pay more in terms of school fees. Parents are saying they cannot pay. Government is saying don't raise school fees. At the same time, they're saying don't send children home because they don't have school fees. Crisis. It's a big problem.
It depends on I don't know your definition, but about on the term crisis, but I tend to feel that it is more harsh of a word to use on matters that we are getting into now. You've mentioned them, I quite accept, but these are matters that can be changed upon, proper participation with some focus.
Yeah.
When you tell the government now, can you fund schools in time? And can you have more teachers? Can we really have, teaching learning resources adequately in schools, because they're doing it but piecemeal? All that you mentioned is within the reach of this government.
Yes.
To actually actualize.
Yes.
So, to me,
So
what
when it
can
doesn't,
be
So when it
sorted out?
becomes a
doesn't,
crisis.
there creates the
You see,
crisis.
crisis does not necessarily denote incompetence or
Yes.
lack of awareness or a absence from reality.
Or lack of
It just means
capability.
the situation as it is right now is a crisis because it's out of hand. It's out of control. It can be
Control.
controlled.
Yeah.
Talk about, for example, the transition from grade 6 into junior secondary.
Right.
And then the Presidential Working Party advises that, no, let's move this into primary. So children are reporting to primary schools. Not all primary schools are hosting JSS.
Right.
So there's already one issue here, that if your child was going to a school that is no longer declared a JSS school, you have to take them to another school. They are not teachers who have been trained and coached on how to handle JSS. The primary school teachers are not been told that they were going to handle JSS. The secondary school teachers are not handling JSS because they're in secondary. Then the government is starting to employ teachers. So for an entire term, children were going to school, they were only being handled by their primary school teachers. The grade 6 teachers were handling them, basically just managing them day to day, not imparting the grade 6, grade 7 curriculum.
Right.
Correct?
Yeah.
In that time, we do not have facilities that they require. We need workshops, we need labs, we need all these things.
Books.
They are not there. The books were being distributed towards the end of the term.
Right.
That, Bwana Secretary General, is a crisis.
Right.
Has it been addressed to date? Books are still being distributed. Some teachers have been employed. The teachers that have been employed are not enough to teach these grade 7 pupils. In a case where you hear there's a school that has 800 grade 7s and 2 teachers have been hired for that, they are not able to address it.
No,
Still,
thank
it's
you.
a crisis.
I think that is why I don't want to summarize this or summarily say that there is crisis, because these matters are being sorted out day by day. You know, when you talk of the issue of junior secondary, it is no longer there. There's no junior secondary now as we speak.
It's junior school.
We talk of junior school within a comprehensive school.
Yes.
Yeah.
And the report from the Presidential Working Party was very clear. The comprehensive school will begin or start from ECD, that is PP1, PP2 to grade 9.
Yes.
In this kind of situation, every other teacher in the comprehensive school have been absorbed into this school.
Yes.
And now gives us a leeway even to have those teachers who are graduates. And I want to, let us shed off this idea of secondary school teachers being brought in to teach in primary. It is now comprehensive school.
Yes.
Where even teachers who are graduates in primary schools now qualify to teach the comprehensive school learners at grade 7, 8, and 9.
Yes.
And that is where we missed it. When we came up with the issue of domiciling junior secondary in primary, it left a gap where secondary school teachers now, those who are graduates, I'm saying the new ones, not those practicing and became graduates on job.
Yeah.
Now, these ones who came from colleges, I know the thinking. Look at the thinking up there. that you are from university and then you're taken back to teach in primary school. The term was only domiciling. But when the Presidential Working Party came out clearly, that is under Professor Manavu, came out clearly to give a recommendation and a report on what reference should be made to this school, it is sorted out a lot. You know, even some of our primary school teachers who are graduates, when they proceeded to teach in junior secondary, then before this report, there was that feeling of promotion that I'm no longer in primary now. I've now been taken to secondary.
Yes.
There is that classism that we should actually take a departure from. And personally, in my own view, teachers are teachers, and classism in teaching should be something that we really condemn in the highest order. That is when we can deliver. Because a teacher who is a graduate, able to teach grade 7, grade 8, and 9, this teacher is equally qualified to teach grade 1, grade 2, and so on.
Yeah.
I, for example, my best class was grade 2, class 2 then. I didn't go beyond class 3. And if I had to, was basically because of staffing in the school where I was the head. I was the head teacher, and my priority was teaching grade 2,
standard 2,
grade 3, you know, because I enjoyed it. Yes, I enjoyed it.
So there shouldn't be classism among teachers, but
There shouldn't be classism.
We have unions, Collins,
Yeah.
that are demarcated along the grades that they teach.
Yeah, that is.
Post-primary,
And
then we have the union. At some point, we had primary. I mean,
yes,
we are
I
saying-
understand you.
so
I understand you.
how can we say that
My
if the way in
answer
which we come
is-
together is
my
even
answer is very
classed?
clear on that. Let us not rape the law. The law is very clear on matters membership of trade unions, and it is clear in the Labour Relations Act. Kenya National Union of Teachers, for example, in our constitution, which has been there from 1957, KNUT will represent teachers of all grades and qualifications.
Okay.
When you look at the leadership of Kenya National Union of Teachers, in fact, at the national level, these leaders have been secondary school teachers at 80%. Yes. So whoever comes in with demarcation to say these teachers should belong to, post-primary, even as we speak now, I have 5 members of the National Executive Council who are principals, not even teachers, principals in high schools. Yeah. So issues of demarcation for us as Kenya National Union
doesn't work.
Is against the law and should not work at all.
I want to bring you back to what you said in terms of now with the Professor Munavu task force recommendation that we have a comprehensive school.
Right.
From PP1 into grade 1, grade 6,
to 9.
grade 7, grade 9.
Right.
Same one head teacher and teachers who report to this one head teacher.
Right.
And teachers who can teach across. Has that solved the issue of the shortage of teachers?
It doesn't. And every other time...
Has it addressed the concern of the grade 7s and those that can teach them? Because the graduate teachers are the ones who are now considered qualified enough to teach the grade 7s.
Correct.
True?
Correct.
How many schools in this country, out of the 40,000 or so schools, how many have graduate teachers that are enough in number to teach grade 7s?
Okay. I want to say not all schools have enough number of graduates to teach grade 7, 8, and 9. But the situation has been somehow normalized, halfway sorted out. When Teacher Service Commission now, upon our own proposals, had primary school teachers who graduated as at 2014 February. That is when TSC stopped promoting those teachers to secondary schools. It is not promotion as such. We call it deployment. So when they opened the doors such that we could have our graduates who stagnated in the positions as primary school teachers without being deployed to secondary schools, At once we got over 9,000 teachers. Over 9,000. And because we are still in the process to have Teacher Service Commission, and or the government for that matter, employ more teachers. We have about 342 teachers now, and the teacher pupil ratio in Kenya average now is 1 to 65 teachers. The UNESCO recommendation is 1 to 45 at most.
Wow.
45 students.
Yes, 45 learners. But go to Olympic Primary School. A teacher standing before learners is handling over 70 to 100.
Yeah.
So we still have that gap. And much as we congratulate the Kenya Kwanza government for what they did, you remember too well, employment in teaching did not go beyond 5,000 annually. And then another 2,500 for replacement. Those who retire, those who die in the course of teaching, TSC could replace at 2,500. So literally 7,500 teachers in a year. In 1 year alone, the Kenya Kwanza government has, they employed 35,000 teachers yet ago. Then there's an additional 20,000 now. In our own analysis and based on the teacher-pupil ratio, that is not yet enough. And if this did not happen, I think I would have qualified total crisis in teaching, you get. But we are trying to let the government know that the working load for a teacher, more so in CBC as it stands now, we need more teachers. And remember, I told you last week that Kenya National Union of Teachers premises its arguments every other time on research reports or research findings. Our research findings to have CBC rolled out well and successfully, the number of teachers is key. Infrastructure is key.
Yep.
So I want to say it is not yet enough. The government should continue employing more teachers. You know, as we were ending the year 2022, the number of teachers outside here compared to the number of teachers who are employed. So that is the unemployed versus the employed. The number was also almost balancing. 345,000 qualified, trained, and teaching, versus close to 300 and another 20,000 teachers outside here, qualified, trained, qualified, but not employed. So that is where we are as a situation. So we don't have shortage of teachers in this country. What we are still pushing for and must push for the success and get rid of the crisis that you're talking about is employment of more teachers.
Hire more and more teachers.
Yes. And in that, the government should also prepare to fund matters education properly. And because of this kind of laxity in employment, you know, education has now been commercialized, which is, you know, a dead thing. This will kill this country. Yeah. Because somebody sets up an institution, brings in a few teachers to pay little money because they're jobless, and then have the learners come in to pay a lot so that they can make profit. Education is a public good. It should not be a profit-making entity, no.
The boss of the TSC went to Parliament, was it last month, and reported to Parliament that they have advertised for graduate teachers to apply to become junior school teachers.
Right.
And they were facing a problem, not a crisis, as you say. They were facing a problem because many of your members who are graduates were saying, why should I take up this new role of teaching in junior school, yet it doesn't come with anything extra in terms of benefits and emoluments? What do you say to that?
I think that was a misconception. The best labor practice, definitely in junior school, now comprehensive school at the level of grade 7, 8, and 9, is additional work. Just like when you go to secondary schools, now skills now should be more sharpened, and you should be ready to handle challenges more than what we have in primary. That one actually was bringing a difference between primary and secondary. For one's higher qualification and for additional work, there should be additional remuneration. It is automatic, globally, everywhere. Everywhere. As you sit here, go back to your papers and you produce to KTN and say, now I have more papers in addition to what I used to have. They must prepare to pay you well.
Give you more responsibility.
That's right. You took your time, resources, to upscale your position in terms of qualifications. You should earn better than what you used to earn before. There's no question about it.
So this contributes to the problem that we're having.
Yeah.
Because then when teachers have not applied for these vacant positions of grade 7, 8, 9 teaching positions in their own schools, then they are not teaching the grade 7s. Yet they are qualified, but they are not.
No, it was not a question of applying to be...
Because basically what the TSC was, what I understood the TSC to be telling Parliament is, I want to use the same resource of teachers that I have in primary school for them to teach grade 7s. But for me to do that, I need to appoint them to teach grade 7.
Right.
But I'm not able to appoint them to teach grade 7 because they're not applying for their responsibility to teach grade 7.
I think
they want to continue teaching primary.
My question is that really true? Because even those who did not qualify to teach grades 7, 8, and 9, according to Teacher Service Commission, but according to us as a union, they qualified. They applied, and they were told, no, you cannot proceed to teach grades 7, 8, and 9.
On what grounds?
The grounds were, which we don't want to consider as a serious issue and must be sorted out with Teacher Service Commission. Most of our teachers, the qualification to go to, to get admitted to a primary teachers training college is grade C plane. You got your C plane, you proceed to, augment your, to proceed with your learning in school-based, in universities. You qualify as a graduate. So when they presented their applications, Teacher Service Commission dropped all those who had KCSE C as a mean grade. Irrespective of the fact that you even did better than one who had B plus or even A minus in KCSE. So this is one issue that we are tackling with Teacher Service Commission on matters qualifications. And we even questioned the Kenya Qualifications Authority on matters of clearing these teachers to teach in secondary schools or in comprehensive school at grade 7, 8, and 9. Our reasoning is we have individuals who scored D and even Division 3, weak Division 3s. And they're now professors. And they ended up even doing better than those who had B pluses and the rest of it. Our reasoning also is based on the fact that you must not get into consider the KCSE grade. Consider the last grade.
Consider the latest.
Because what might have happened to a learner who scored C, you don't know. Maybe the challenges that were there, some of these learners lived with their grandmothers. So they couldn't have that ample time to do very well in KCSE. But got an opportunity now that you can earn your little money and sponsor yourself in college. You end up with first-class honors. Imagine one being employed as, being deployed by Teacher Service Commission, and this teacher had lower second in the degree that he or she got, and a very good B plain or B plus, KCSE. There's this other person who got C plain. But university grading, not even upper second, first class honors. Now, who is fit to handle whoever you want handled? No.
What does the TSC say? I mean, also the Kenya National Qualification Authority.
Yeah.
Because just casually reading this, it basically smacks right in the face of promoting competence and all.
Correct.
And continuing to punish somebody because of the grade that they got very many years ago in secondary school.
Yeah.
That whole issue of, you've gotten C, you have not failed, you can still make something out of it.
Right.
Go into certificate, you can go into diploma, higher national diploma degree,
Correct.
and you can advance.
Correct.
It means it doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter if
and,
you ever advance into
what you do
PhD.
later.
It doesn't make sense at all. What we go to lecturers in universities, most of these professors, these are people who actually have taken into account that lifelong learning which is actually the principle in the SDG 4, Sustainable Development Goals number 4, which emphasizes in lifelong learning. I should not be stopped from doing my best when I'm able to do it.
Yeah.
And nobody should peg any consideration about me on what is basically 10 years, 20 years ago. KCSE should not be
The basis
of Teacher Service Commission stopping the employment of these teachers to serve in grade 7, 8, and 9, and maybe deploying those who are serving before in primary schools to handle grade 7, 8, and 9 in the comprehensive school.
There have been many questions in terms of where is it going to come from, but then we've also seen that education across board in terms of that funding, how it happens. We've seen the increase of capitation will come along with the reforms of the Presidential Working Party. Capitation will also include now pre-primary.
Correct.
The question is it sufficient? We're looking at capitation of just over 1,000 shillings in pre-primary, and then we've seen an increase across the board between 600 to 1,100 shillings, and that's then from primary all the way, now comprehensive school until secondary.
Thank you. It's still not enough, even as we talk about increase in capitation. One area that strikes us and might cause a lot of, might create a lot of issues, even with what has been proposed, is the timely funding, the timely release of capitation. This has been a problem through and through. And I remember when I visited the CS education on Friday last week. There was a whole week with the president being in Western.
Yes.
And indeed, after signing the CBA, Ministry of Education being the parent ministry, the umbrella ministry in charge of teachers in this republic, I had to have some short time with the CS, also to elaborate what we saw as shortfall, what should be done, and maybe tell him as the person in charge of this sector what we intend to do in the near future. I didn't find him until Friday last week. I shared with him, I thanked him about the report of the Presidential Working Party, and I zeroed on capitation. I did not mince words. I told the CS the success of education, how we can mold education and stop privatization of this public good is by making sure that schools run and in very good time they are funded. What used to be there before was far much lower than what has been augmented now. But there are serious lapses in terms of timing for the same capitation. How sure are we that this time, now that it has been augmented, it's going to be timely?
Yeah.
He assured me that the government is ready. And we should not take the preparations of the government for granted. I told him, yes, let us wait. But I want to assure you that, let me use the word crisis now.
Okay.
The crisis in this sector begins with inadequate funding. Not only inadequate, what is sent to schools does not come in good time. And you see, even you mentioned to me about principals being accused of, collecting extra levies.
Yes.
This is caused by the fact that, there's nothing in schools to run those schools if you only depend on what comes from the government. So it is not the principal who initiates, collection of more funds. It is basically the boards of those schools. And this is where I cross lanes with those who blame principals and head teachers for this. It is wrong. A principal cannot run a school single-handedly.
They're answerable to a board.
Yeah, basically the board. And the board has, representation of whoever has a learner or a child in that school. So it is not about the principal. It is about the board. So you target the board rather than accusing this principal. And some of our parents, much as they are represented, still can organize, demos and nasty words about the principal and the heads of institutions, not forgetting that they have a board in place. That is very wrong. It's a total misconception. And in this line, I'll support my principals and head teachers 100%.
When they increase fees.
With the knowledge of the board. A principal cannot increase fees. Neither can a head teacher initiate any other extra levy.
But you see,
it is all about the board.
Okay.
For many of these school communities, just dwelling on this matter for a little bit, the person who is a constant is the principal.
Yes.
Right? Because the board comprises of people who are elected by the parent fraternity to sit on the board, but the community to sit on the board, right? And so when they feel that the board is not running this school properly, the community usually comes up and they remove members of the board and they replace members of the board. But the one person who cannot be touched is the school principal.
The school principal.
I think it's not right.
And that's
to
when
say
we see demos where parents are now going and demanding the ouster of a principal because everything else has failed.
It's not right to say that the community brings in the board. The boards of schools are enshrined in law, and the Ministry of Education has total responsibility in getting us who is who in that board. I'm a board member of two schools. The community did not bring me in. I was brought in by the Ministry of Education. So before the ministry takes time to point a finger at the principal, let them talk to me as a person, a representative they sent there. Yes. So what I'm saying in a nutshell is, let us not
Let's not isolate there.
Yes. Let us not isolate the principal from the board. He's part of the board and the secretary of the board. Yes.
But then when when the cabinet secretary assured you that the government this time is going to release money at good time, were you given timelines?
Plus,
because previously.
Well, first of all, I had to accept because a word from the CS, who is a serious representative of the government, I, as a leader in this sector, because trade unionism also falls under the main, teaching as a sector, education as a sector. I could not stand in with much pessimism than optimism.
Was there guarantee
yes.
that the pending?
Yes.
Because everybody knows, I'm sure you know, it's a pain point, that schools have not even received the balance from term 2.
Correct.
We're in a short term now for term 3.
Yeah.
And there's still a backlog So any money received now is paying
what
back
was there.
what was left.
Filling the hole.
So there's the promise of the future, but then there's also this big hole in the past and the present that is yet to be filled. So which comes first?
Now, I think let's get it right. There is the Presidential Working Party report that faces implementation. The implementation of the new report should actually commence immediately we are done with the holes you're talking about. So what I told the minister is how I wish you are done before we start implementing what the Manavu has come up with as a chairman. How I wish, and I use the word sooner than immediate, how I wish everything is completed and we work on a fresh slate, so that when we accuse any other person, it should be none other than the Presidential Working Party report implementation. So that we are clear that we are dealing with a new thing. His response was, ndugu yangu, I know where this sector went to. I don't want to say it went to the dogs. But looking at how things worked, I mean, in the other, about 2-3 years ago, I don't think we even minded about where we're headed to. If the government is serious about this report, then let us do away with what was left out in the last one, so that we start on a clean slate. We don't want to blame anybody else apart from what is fresh now. So my sister, when we talk of timelines, personally, I think I did not demand for timelines. I said as soon, as immediate as yesterday.
Right.
Yeah.
But that
is a very strong position.
That yesterday hasn't come to pass yet, right?
It has to. It has to. If you want to move, definitely let us commence on a new slate and make sure that we have a new beginning, because we are turning a new leaf. Yes. If we are serious with the, I want to tell you one thing about the president, matters education. And we've asked ourselves, is it because he was one time a minister of education? Or is it because the way he was brought up looked too local? Some of our people, were brought up in, places where they couldn't even see the problems of communities around.
They don't get it.
In fact, when the president talks about, stressing on matters day schools, I can attest to the fact that day schooling might be the best for this country, given the state of economy and also the status of 70% of parents economically.
Yeah.
So what I was trying to drive was the fact that the president has a hands-on approach on matters education.
But he is not financing this.
For us, we shall not stop at anything, but face the president again when there's no financing for this noble recommendations and report from the Presidential Working Party. That is on his own initiative. For the first time, the president came up to change matters education. And I want to assure you, it is the president and nobody else to make sure that this succeeds.
The buck stops at the very top.
Yes.
Very many things need to happen at the same time.
Right.
We need to make sure that money that should be going to finance education per child goes on time.
Correct.
We need to make sure that facility improvement money goes out on time.
Infrastructure.
Right. So that infrastructure is built. Now we talk about this comprehensive school that has the junior school. The junior school needs infrastructure.
Right.
And we don't have much time. In a few months' time, we'll have 2 classes in junior school.
Right.
7s and 8s.
Yeah.
And yet we don't have labs. We are still saying, okay, they can use the nearest secondary school. They can.
It was bad enough when there was just 1 class.
Now there'll be 2.
Now there'll be 2.
Right. You see, grade 6 went into grade 7. in terms of classrooms, as Class 8 exits to Form 1, Grade 7 still has room to be accommodated in
Grade 8.
In Grade 8.
True.
And that infrastructure for schools that were qualified to be comprehensive schools, that room is there. What we are insisting on in terms of infrastructure, because not every other primary school that was graduated to comprehensive school stands closer to a
sister secondary school.
A sister secondary school. So infrastructure should begin, or to have begun, to be precise, about laboratories.
Yes.
And, there's also priorities that are not right. Like when MPs buy so many buses for secondary schools, than using this fund to come up with laboratories in our comprehensive schools as a priority. Yeah. We have written a report about this because some of these school buses are just fashions. Yeah, they're just fashions. There are schools as a bus. Yet the classrooms are in tatters. There's no laboratory.
If they exist.
The much that is used in buying a bus should be rolled out to
You should be going into building these labs that are needed.
That are very necessary.
Equipping the labs.
Exactly.
Because we also have just a building.
Correct.
But
a lab should not just be a building.
It should have everything else.
Correct.
Mwalimu, always a pleasure having you.
Thank you.
Come again and again. And let's see. If money is not released by the end of this month,
when
our
crisis is a crisis.
Thank you. I'll start asking about this money again, so that when I come back here,
please,
I tell you the timelines, and I want to be very specific in uttering, even to media, what the CS has told me.
Exactly.
Because he shouldn't cheat me.
It shouldn't just be, we are aware.
So he's government, and he should tell us exactly what the government is planning to do.
Asante.
Thank you.
Collins Oyuu is the Secretary General of the Kenya National Union of Teachers. He's been our guest this morning. We'll be talking about the education sector and where we are as a country. Let's keep the conversations going.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.